right, you guys want to give it a few minutes and let everyone?
Yeah, let's let everybody get a little bit of time to
logged
get
in. Yeah.
Now that we know what the time zone is, what is Arizona? Are we Mountain? Are we Pacific? Are we Arizona?
We're Arizona, right?
Been
Which
here
means we don't.
I don't know.
There's one time zone. It's called now.
Right. So we'll wait about a minute and let people get in, and then we'll get rock and rolling.
Okay.
We've got people joining in.
Yeah, we got people joining in. I see a few waves.
Hey, Kevin.
There's Carmen.
Mr. Rubino himself.
Mr. Rubino. Kevin Reggio. Nice.
Nice.
Gwendolyn. Nice. Susan Barnes. Nice.
Welcome. Hi, Annie.
Annie. How you doing, Annie? Larry Helly. Look at all our friends.
Hi, Lisa. All our friends are here. How we like it.
Yeah. Mike King.
Oh, Mr. New Orleans himself.
Well, he's in Florida right now, isn't he?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. It's late in the day for King. All right, another minute or so. Hey, Nicole, how you doing?
Are you going to give us some housekeeping notes, Billy?
Ms. Napolitano, nice to see you. Do we need housekeeping notes? I don't think so. Your hair is still not in the picture, though.
What do you need here? Always a topic of conversation.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Fabulous.
Karen Myers. Karen, good to see you. How's Cosmo?
All right, I think we got a full house.
Yeah, let's rock and roll.
All
right. So thanks everybody for coming and watching our Facebook Live. Since the one I did a couple weeks ago, we had a lot of people ask that we kind of continue to chat about what we're seeing in the industry, because we're talking to a gajillion clients, we're talking to hotels all over the place, we're talking and working on deals. And so our theme for this week in the email was resilience. And I think everybody in this industry probably is going through the most difficult time of their professional lives. And like I said a couple of weeks ago, we've got a lot of friends on the sales side of things, but there's thousands of people that have been furloughed: front desk clerks, bellmen, busboys, maids, and we collectively need to focus on how we get this industry restarted. So what we're trying to do is help everybody navigate what we see is going on. And for those of you who don't know, the other people on the screen, I've got Jill Dasher, who's the SVP and Managing Director of our Meeting Services Division. Hi, Jill.
Hello. Happy to
And
be here.
I've got Harold Batiste, who is the Senior Vice President of Sales Operations. So he's been on the front lines of a lot of what we've been calling lift and shift, if you will. There's 4 words I've said more in the last month than in the last 20 years. The first are force majeure, and we'll talk about that in a second. The second is dumpster fire, because that's kind of what it looks like out there a little bit. I listened to a very smart attorney I know talk about force majeure yesterday, and it gets pretty esoteric. I try to not dumb it down, but I try and put it into easy to understand terms for everybody in the industry, planners and hotels alike. Okay, so it's I think it's functionally 3 rules. Is the hotel open and operating? Can I get there? Right? Can I get on a plane? Even though it's a hassle to stop in Dallas to get to Florida because the flights aren't what they used to be, that doesn't mean you can't get there. And is there a governmental ban in place? So if there's a company ban, it doesn't matter. So I can't cause my own force majeure. So I can't put a ban on my company and say, you guys can't travel, so that's now force majeure for the hotels. The hotel has every right to rely on that contract, and find a solution. What I have, again, I said this a couple weeks ago, what we're all trying to do is find creative solutions. Everybody's moving out of, we're seeing the lift and shift moving into June. And then there's an interesting dichotomy in that there's so much stuff moving out of, this functionally this quarter, and trying to find space in the fall, that it's actually getting pretty interesting to try and find space in the fall. And Harold will talk more about the lift and shift because he's been executing a lot of that. There are some fall issues that we're seeing, but I always phrase that as underlying economic issues with the customer. So I saw one that was a landscaping company franchise. Well, guess what? Their landscapers aren't working right now, so they're not all going to pay for going to a meeting somewhere. So it's again, some of the smart hoteliers I've talked to are looking at those carefully and flexibly, by the way, and talking about attrition recalibration, because that then frees up space so the hotel can get the rooms cleared, the hotel can get the space back, and I can tell you there's demand for it out there right now. So if there's an underlying economic issue with the company, I think it behooves everybody to be proactive as opposed to reactive. Like if we know that the company's, again, I used the same example 2 weeks ago. If the company had 600 rooms and now they only know they're going to get 300, and Jill will speak to the virtual component because we're talking to a lot of people about doing virtual components, just to keep the base revenue on the books for the hotel. So I think what, and I talked to a lot of people on the hotel side, I think what the smart hoteliers are doing is being creative and proactive about that, and then backfilling it with other things that are looking for space because they want to have a meeting. They want to have a meeting in the fall, and then it's it's a sort of a win-win for everybody. The hotel gets the base revenue, the client gets to have the meeting, and then the hotel gets somebody else to backfill the space. But it's there has to be flexibility. And it's, again, an interesting dichotomy. There's flexibility on attrition, and again, the smart hoteliers that I talk to are pursuing that strategy, where we look at a deal, we come to a resolution, we don't get attorneys involved, okay? Because again, I've said this many times in the last couple of weeks. Let's not make this, and to any attorney friends that are watching this, don't get mad at me. Let's not make this the lawyer's Full Employment Act of 2020. There was an article in Wall Street today about an avalanche of tort attorneys going after personal injury for coronavirus. Like, it's, I mean, seriously, why? Like, why now, right? So the lift and shift is moving into June. We need to be proactive, not reactive. Look at the fall and see if there are customers that have contracts with underlying economic issues, and then adjust it and free up the space. And by adjusting it, it's not just attrition, but at the same point in time, it's food and beverage commitments. Okay. But the other half of that is, if a customer just says, I'm canceling, I mean, hotels are going to want that cancellation fee, right? I mean, attrition is an easy conversation, not an easy conversation, but it's a functionally a more simple conversation than hey, I'm going to cancel and then go our own way. So let me stay force majeure one more time. Is the hotel open? Can I get there? Even if it's a hassle to get there. Okay, and if it's yes, then yes. And is there a governmental ban? And if the answer to that is no, I know a lot of planners, and again, a lot of planners are listening to this as well. I know a lot of planners want to call it force majeure, and a lot of executive directors are going to call it force majeure, and a lot of CEOs want to call it force majeure because they think that's an easy out. Or frustration of purpose. Well, frustration of purpose, if you can get there and the hotel's open, doesn't matter. And that's how 90% of the the force majeure clauses are written. So what we're focused on is flexible, creative solutions that work for the client and work for the hotel and lets everybody get on with their lives. We are seeing a couple other interesting tidbits. Most hotels now, and I've heard this from a bunch of planners, most hotels now have coronavirus safety guidelines on their website. And so if there's a planner looking at space for futures, there's a policy, everybody's already got a policy in place. They're all out there. I think I saw Winds and they were talking about only 4 people per elevator for a while. I'm not sure how you're going to do that at Wind, but who knows. For planners trying to execute this strategy, part of the problem is hotels, and again, I'm not forming an opinion about this, but I mean, hotels have furloughed, number one, most of their global sales forces, and number 2, most of their property level sales forces. So for a planner out there who is trying to navigate this, again, what could be a fairly complex conversation about attrition, or is it cancellation, and what are we doing? Is it force majeure? They need a guide. What Jill said this to me yesterday, and it kind of resonated. They need a guiding hand, and we're here just to help people. I think we're going to see different states open at different times. I think you're going to see red states open a lot faster than blue states, right? And the the numbers I saw is there's potentially 25 to 30% occupancy for this year. Now the problem, not the problem, but the issue is it's going to be 0 for 3 months, and it's going to be 85 to 90% for the last 4 months of the year. So if you are attempting to execute a lift and shift, which is a good solution for everybody, because a hard cancel is going to be you're going to get a legal tussle if you just do a hard cancel, assuming it's not force majeure. Okay. So the space for the fall is filling up, and so that's something that should be beginning to be discussed sooner rather than later. We're seeing, and Jill will speak to this in a couple of minutes, we're seeing a large increase in hybrid events. Okay. And what that means for the hotel, again, is less rooms occupied, less food and beverage. They can go resell it to somebody else. But it also means they need bandwidth for that. So if you're going to have 300 people, attending the conference via the internet, bandwidth is an issue, right? I just got a bunch of notes here, so I'm just running through them. Other smart people I've talked to are aggressively designing a plan to make people more comfortable. It used to be that hotels would sort of hide the maids, like they'd have to walk around the back of the house and everything. I think most hotels are now putting the maids up front and center, and they have cleanliness guidelines that are posted. They have things that you can get when you check in. It's I think housekeeping is going to be an important component of what we do here. We're seeing a lot of virtual site visits as well. There's hotels doing them. We have a sort of a strategic relationship with Access DMC. They've got a presence, I think, in 30 cities, and they've told me that they'll go do a virtual site visit for us anywhere. So you can see the meeting space, you can see the property grounds, you can see whatever you need to, and talk to somebody as they kind of walk the property. So communication is key. Be creative. There's always a solution. Again, without somebody going and filing a lawsuit, right? And then the other thing that resonated with me is I think it's leadership. So if you're still a leader with an organization that has furloughed people, just reach out and make an emotional deposit. Say hi. So my daughter was a conference service manager for about 5 weeks ago at the Omni in Fort Worth. And her general manager, Larry, has probably called her 4 or 5 times in the last 5 weeks, right? And that's a leader. So I think we should all be doing something similar to that. So Harold, do you want to talk about lift and shift a little bit?
Yeah, I want to get into a little bit of that blocking and tackling that's involved with that. So good afternoon, everyone, and most of our hotel industry folks that are here, I probably know have crossed paths with at some point or another. But um, for our client base that is on it, I haven't had a chance to meet. My name is Harold Batiste. I run our sales op here at HPN Global, and my primary role is to do just that. It's literally block and tackle for our associates as they encounter hurdles in getting a program from RFP to contract. And today, I really love having this diverse audience. I'm seeing all the people that are logged in or saying hello, and this is almost like a homecoming here, which is great to see all the familiar names, right? And I know that every single person on this call has been affected in some form by this pandemic. And I believe we will get through this, and I believe we'll get through it together. So COVID-19 and meetings. What have we seen? Where are we at the moment? And then what do we foresee happening in our space once we get to the other side of this? Because there is another side, and Jill, I'll ask you to speak more to that here in a moment once I get through a couple of things here. So. I, as well as Bill, have been on the front lines, as well as John Mario and Steve Scatino. We're on the front lines and in the trenches with our associates. We're in the trenches with our clients and our hotel partners as we navigate through these really uncharted waters, right? And I tell you, it's really fascinating how fast we went from 0 to 100 with this COVID, right? You go back to what seems like ages ago in late January, early February, where we were only seeing the virus impact areas like Asia, parts of Europe, and at that time we began to see some of our programs with mostly international attendees become affected. Then we moved to travel restrictions of how they could get into the U.S. And so for those programs, we saw a few cancellations, but it was nothing that I would call highly alarming, right? So then you fast forward to March, and when COVID-19 officially became that global pandemic, and that's when all hell broke loose with just literally widespread panic. And any of our clients that had programs consuming in March, April, May, those were essentially going to be canceled. And those planners and those meeting owners wanted to cancel. And those are the calls we were getting. Who can blame them, right? So it was important for us at HPN to have a collective strategy of attack. And that strategy was first, and this is the message to our associates, was, hey, let's just breathe. Let's breathe. And let's create a strategy of attack that's built on 2 caveats. And those 2 caveats were, one, how can I help you? We as associates, we took our sales hats off and we became literally, how can we help you type of consultants. And the second one was empathy. Let's be empathetic with our client. These are the unprecedented times. They don't know how to react. Let's be empathetic with our hotel partners as we start talking about this whole, either cancellations, lift and shifts, things of that nature. So it was really interesting because the initial conversations our associates were having with clients were, the clients calls and says, hey, I need to cancel this program. It's a global pandemic, so it's force majeure. So I don't owe the hotel a dime, right? Well, as Bill talked to a moment ago, that's not always necessarily true. And I'm not going to dive too deep into the whole force majeure or what's impossibility piece. Bill may talk a little bit more about that. But let's just say we had to educate our clients, as well as some of the hotels, about the various legalities around canceling a program in the midst of a pandemic. Just not an easy thing, obviously. And our focus was, hey, let's look at alternatives to straight canceling, whether it's a force majeure or not. And Bill talked about it earlier. We coined this phrase, lift and shift, and that's what we, any issue, let's avoid cancellation. Let's provide a solution where we actually, pick up the program. It's an awesome tactic, and we essentially lift the program out of its current dates and we shift it to the later dates. And what's great is that it's typically a cost neutral move for the client. It keeps the program on the books with the hotel. Now, obviously, the hotel has to be on board with the tactic, but and we found that to be much more of a thing where they were on board during the onset, especially if the program date shifts were within the same year. But again, Bill alluded to it earlier. 2020 filled up fast, and so now you're looking at shifting into future
Early
years
21.
where it can get a bit, complicated. And listen, hotels are bleeding, and they're bleeding cash. So when you start looking to shift into those later years, if we have a client that really feels that it's force majeure, Harold, we need to have the ability to be able to shift this to another year and have it truly be cost neutral. Well, we've had to educate the client that, listen, there's a liquidated damages due area in the contract, right? Our goal is not to have you pay that number, but we try to level set the expectation that it's probably going to cost you something to get out of it. So, the other piece is, when you start getting further out, the one thing we did find is that just one solution or a solution is just not a one size that fits all. So COVID-19 in meetings at the moment, where are we now? And on one hand, we have, many hotels that are still closed, or they're open with a kind of a shoestring staff. And then we also have every state that has some sort of gathering ban or shelter in place, which, also makes things, rather interesting. Clients now are considering canceling or postponing programs as far out as November. We're getting calls about November, and even a couple about December. Is that, how can I operate a program? So that's one hand. The other hand is what the subject of this call is today, and it is the resilience. It's the resilience of how do we turn the page and pivot to a state where we get back to doing meetings. And I was talking to someone earlier this week, and they asked me, said, Harold, so, how do we get back to doing meetings? You've got a 1,000-room hotel that's packed full of groups for let's just say November. That hotel's closed now. They reopen. What is that process to get staff that have been furloughed back to the hotel, trained on how to execute meetings and Jill, we're going to talk about this here. How do you execute meetings with social distance in mind? And so, I don't know the answer to that. And I think we're gonna build the car as we drive it a little bit, I think. But so Jill, as we talk about moving to the future and and again, I truly want us as an industry to turn the page. This is the time where we've got to take some risk. And I'm talking to our hotel partners. I'm talking to our client base on the phone. Let's get back to meeting. But Jill, just based on that question of how do we get back to, what does the industry look like? What do meetings look like once we get on the other side? I mean, Jill, what's your take from your perspective?
It's a great question, and I appreciate you asking. I want to say, first of all, thanks for including me in this conversation today. And I think we all really appreciate everyone who's here taking time, to be in this conversation with us. So please share your questions. We want to hear them and answer as many as we can. There's a lot to cover, Harold, in that question, because I think it's twofold. It's short term. What are our clients asking us? What do we do in the short term to keep our attendees close and to broaden our audience, right? And that's that virtual component when you've had to postpone so far out. So how do you do virtual? And like you said, there is no one size fits all solution. It depends on so many factors. So, it's really being that guiding hand with our clients, talking about what does virtual look like? What is the goal of a virtual meeting? How extensive does it need to be? And how long does it need to be? So we make sure we're having engagement without, creating fatigue for those attendees. So those are a lot of the conversations we're having with clients, and even clients that are not current clients of ours is really just helping navigate those waters. But then long term, what does it look like when we go back to meetings in person? And I can tell you, every client we're speaking to wants to be back to in-person meetings. There is nothing like it. And we all do that, right? So I read something interesting today. PCMA had some stats out. I think 87% of meetings canceled due to COVID. And of those 87%, 70% have gone to partial or fully virtual in the short term. That's an interesting statistic. So that says a lot of people are driving to virtual. Do I think we could have adopted virtual 6 months ago? Absolutely not. In this climate, we are adapting because we have to. So I have a lot of empathy for our planners that are learning how to go virtual in the short term, and then what a combination on-site hybrid meeting looks like in the future. Bill, you touched on bandwidth. I did see a note come up here from Mary Lynn and Jill, and I want to address that because coming into the future, what we're going to see is there are going to be different regulations by local and state factors, by hotel chains. Yeah, I think we're going to need more space, not less, as we socially distance our attendees. So what does that look like? How is food and beverage going to be impacted? No more buffets, not preset tables. What does that look like? And working really hand in hand with our hotel partners and our clients to be creative in those solutions. And yes, Bill, housekeeping on the front lines. We'll probably even be negotiating that into our contracts. What does sanitation look like? How long does it take to flip a room now, whether it's a guest room or a meeting room? So these are all really important factors. I do see long-term that we will see hybrid meetings going out for the next couple of years, because ultimately we want to broaden our audience and bring people into the mix of those meetings. So we're working with our hotel partners to make sure that we do have that bandwidth, that we can do live streaming. We can also do on-demand content. We have mobile apps to drive engagement, which is really important, that we want to make sure that we're communicating often, very often, and collaboratively to our attendees so they feel safe and confident coming back to meetings when the time's right.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I saw a note here on one of the questions here, and I agree with, is that, we like the idea of hybrid versus full virtual, and that gives a mix of both that helps everyone out. And I think now you may see full virtual. You may then eventually move into kind of a hybrid space. But I think technology like this today, seeing you, Jill, up there, Bill over here, and everyone here, this makes me want to get back to meetings where I can sit here and I can reach out and shake Mike King's hand. I can give a big old hug to Mark Dahlman. So I think companies, the more that they strive to have an influx of technology to get through their meetings, to network, that's going to make people want to, I think, meet even that much more.
Here, let me jump in on that for a second, okay, Jill? I will echo that 1,000%. I think on the backside of this, there is going to be a bunch of pent-up, compressed demand. The meetings industry in the United States is, I think it's 139 billion in rooms revenues for hotels, and there's a reason people meet. We're social animals. Okay, we like to go. People like to travel. They like to go see people. And I don't know how many people on this call have seen somebody on Zoom go to the bathroom, but I think I've seen it 8 or 9 times. So I don't think that technology is going to fix, or change the fundamental equation that people love to meet and they love to travel. So I saw a question here. What do you think of the future of meetings for 2021? And I keep using the word dichotomy. It's going to be a lot of negotiation about terms and rates, both directions. Hotels are going to want tighter, sort of force majeure clauses to not have this be an issue. Clients are going to want cheaper rates, and everybody knows they are. But I think there's going to be I think once we get through the fall, and again, the fall is its own little thing because so much stuff has moved out of this second quarter into the third and fourth quarter. I think next year is going to be a pretty good year. Now, it's not going to be rates that were in 2019, right? Somebody else asked, do I think this has changed from a seller's market into a buyer's market? I think, yeah, probably for a while, for at least a couple of years. And I know the hotels don't want to hear that, but again, the smart hotels are putting the revenue on the books. I've got a couple of friends who are hotel owners, and they're, they want to go do deals to get revenue on the books because, they guess what? They have mortgages to pay. So again, I think it's going to be an interesting market because I think there's going to be a lot of pent up demand. I think once this kind of burns out, I think every restaurant in the United States is going to be, you won't be able to get a table in September, October because everybody's want to get out of their houses and and go. But at the same point in time, I think hotels are going to need to be realistic about the fact that it in my mind it has changed from a seller's to a buyer's market. So
yeah. Another question here was, how are we addressing our clients with the fall programs, like you mentioned, Bill? If you've got a September, October program, is there talking a client off the ledge from canceling? So there's a couple of different ways to answer that. Depends on what type of conference it is. If it's some type of a user-based conference, something where you've got an external attendee base that has to register months ahead of that program, and that meeting organizer has to, is on the hook for filling that block. There's the materially affected piece of, can they put on that meeting? And Bill, you've said this a couple of times. It's the smart hotels that, take the contract for what it is on paper, but just look at each case or scenario on a case-by-case basis.
Let's cut a deal.
Let's cut a deal. So I personally, with clients, I've worked with many of our hotel partners with moving September programs into 21. And the problem you run into with that in some cases, that 21 and 22 could be booked up. So I had another one where their next open year wasn't until 24. This group was not in force majeure by no means, because it was a September program. But we went and we approached the hotel and we offered a solution to go ahead. And if you really feel like you want to cancel this program, all right, let's find a way to rebook it. And will that involve a little bit of liquidated damages? Maybe. Is it a straight lift and shift? That's ideal. The other option with the September programs, and I can't remember who asked that question, but the other thing is, instead of talking off the ledge, well, can you have some semblance of the program, right? So let's now go to the hotel and change the narrative a bit, and then let's don't worry about a cancel. Let's talk about some leniency and attrition, and those are another thing that smart hotels are doing. They're saying, hey, come have the program. We'll take your attrition that's at 80%, 85%, and we'll put that attrition at, I've seen 70, I've seen 60, I saw one that did 50%. And they said, hey, just come have a program. Give us a reason to hire back our front of house, back of house, and our overall line staff.
Put our employees back to work.
Yeah, so that's on the table, and we're finding most hotels are open to that, especially for those Q3, Q4 programs.
Let me say one thing, Jill, and then you can jump in. Because I've seen probably 3 comments about space where, because of the social distance, and Jill, you can layer on top of this, where, well, we had a 10,000 square foot ballroom for 400 people. Now we have 200, but we still need the same ballroom. I heard an interesting comment yesterday that was made to probably 5,000 or 6,000 hoteliers that a lot of smart hoteliers are looking at putting up a fixed tent somewhere on their facility so you can distance space. So you functionally have increased your space, live streaming the content into that, having your proper social distancing at the, 6 tops or whatever. And basically having the ability to still handle the meeting without tying up your entire ballroom for half of your rooms.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely, Bill. What I was going to touch upon earlier is going back to the question about that Q3, Q4, what's that looking like? What are we seeing, and how do you talk people off the ledge? A lot of it comes down to what our client attendee base is, and how they've been impacted by this based on their industry. Yes, we've all been impacted, but if it's medical, are we really going to get, NICU staff, on site in November? So looking at those case by case and saying, what is a good solution? Is it a hybrid solution? So you do some on site for those who do want to travel, and then you add that virtual component to capture, a bigger audience. And then really being empathetic that going forward, there is going to be some emotional impact for some of our attendees, and understanding that and working together to make sure we address that, because I think that will carry forward beyond this. So while I don't see virtual, as we've been saying, is anything beyond that short term to capture that audience now, not one client that we're talking to today is saying, I'm never, going to do on-site meetings. I'm going to stay all virtual. Not happening. All of our clients that we're talking to are excited and looking forward to the future of meeting in person and getting creative in the short term, so we can reach people and engage them. And I think we all do that together. So absolutely, I think things that we're going to be talking about are more space, Bill, not less space.
Right.
It's going to be talking about cleanliness, safety, risk mitigation on those fronts. Absolutely. And budgeting. What does this cost now that we're adding in all these other things?
So there's one question I wanted to address here from Lori Helly, I think it was. Are you seeing people want to cancel for September, October? Again, I mean, we're talking to those clients, we're helping them out, we're helping them find flexibility with the hotel. And again, a lot of hotels are being flexible, to keep the base revenue. I don't think I've seen a hard cancel past July at this point. Now, again, I get back to the clients who, because of this, have underlying economic issues with their business, right? And so we ought to be, as a industry, we ought to be creative about looking at finding a solution. And again, I've said it 100 times in the last month, not make this the Lawyers Full Employment Act of 2020, right? So, that's just, we just got to, people just need to talk, right? And find a solution.
Yeah, I love the comment here from Julia Wilmot here. People are ready to people are ready to get back to meeting. How many Zoom calls are you on a week, whether it's professional or for personal? I mean, let's get out the house here and let's just get back to doing what we love to do. But it's going to take some risk and collaboration. And
creativity.
And if you're on the fence, as again, it's talking to our client base here that's on with us today. If you're on the fence, that's fine. And if you are being, if you're not the actual meeting owner and you work in a capacity that you're having to put on the meeting, or you sign the contract on the behalf of a CEO or an executive, and that person is on you about, I don't know what to do with our November meeting. I need you to, get us out of this. That's when you call your meeting planner with HPN, or whoever you're working with as an intermediary. Call that person, and at least here at HPN, we welcome the opportunity to talk to those C-level execs who are maybe making that request to you. And to find, again, what Bill said, that creative solution.
Yeah, I think, I think every CEO and every executive director in the country is going to their meeting planning department saying, analyze our liability, right? Because it's uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds anxiety. And so I'm having a lot of conversations with people who are like, what does it look like? What are we, what's going to happen? And, again, I've been given the same, advice is the wrong word, the same opinion of what we should do to both clients and to hotels, and everybody just breathe. So I had a deal last week where the client was up against an increase in a cancellation hurdle. I think it was on Tuesday. And so they sent a cancellation notice. And I talked to the hotel and I said, give them a couple of weeks, let them breathe. Let's see what and I think this was a July piece of business. And so because they felt like they were up against a wall, they went ahead and pulled the trigger. Now, if everybody just breathes, the hotel gives them a little breathing space, right? Everybody just needs to breathe right now because everybody's anxious. You know, everybody is super sharp edged. There's no doubt, right? You know, people in our industry are going through a time, and again, for the young people in our industry, I mean, think about the 32-year-olds. They've never seen anything like this. You know, they've worked their whole lives in a historic economic boom, and so you know, it's there's some emotional adjustment, right? But again, if we're all kind and creative, we find solutions.
Right. And there's a question on here I want to address. Are we seeing new business? And that's an interesting question because on the meeting services side, we are seeing
For sure.
business in the year for the year, but we have a different approach. It's more of a 360-degree approach. So what that looks like is, all right, we're bidding on it, an on-site, a virtual, or a hybrid, and being able to really pivot depending on what happens when we have to make the decision, depending on the timing of it. And how do you pivot those resources that we're going to go from on-site? And that was a great point, Megan. Yeah, you pull that from food and beverage and other areas and now pivot that towards virtual or the hybrid. So we're really kind of pitching different meetings because we've got to pitch all those options instead of, you know, and I think it's like it's just not one thing we're pitching. We're actually talking about what are 3 versions and where do you move your resources depending on when that decision is made. So absolutely. We're still working in the year for the year business.
Right. So to that exact question, you know, I've seen lift and shift or cancel and rebook scenarios. What 2 things here? There was one person that made a comment about that they are seeing cancellations all the way through the year. And when Bill made a comment of he hasn't seen a hard cancellation since, you know, I think he said July, you know, that's correct. And what we call a hard cancellation is when someone says, you know what, I'm going to stroke a check for whatever the contracted liquidated damages are, and we're going to walk away, right? What we see is a cancel and rebook, and we don't call that a hard cancellation because that program stays on the books with the hotel. It just happens to be in a future year. But we've seen clients even get creative and say, you know what, you know, Harold, for example, yeah, sure, I'd be open to paying some sort of liquidated damage to move it to 21 or to 22. But here's what I also do to sweeten the pot is that I have a smaller program that we were on the fence about canceling, and I'll give that to the hotel and kind of to sweeten the deal a bit. And I've seen a lot of those, and that's, you know, even though you're moving a big program out of the current year, you're still putting you're getting a smaller program that may be in a different month. So we are seeing mostly smaller new meetings that are RFPs that are coming to the table for Q3, Q4.
And I think in the spirit of partnership, right? We're all in this together, our clients, our hotels, and we move forward in that spirit of partnership together.
You got Ursa right here, who just said she's working on 3 new contracts.
Yeah, 3 new contracts for July to February.
You know,
I think again, I talk about smart hoteliers a lot. There's also smart meeting planners out there, right? And I've told more than a couple clients that I've talked to, you know, if you got stuff for 21, 22, 23, that this probably is the best buying opportunity for a customer in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I'm not saying that because I'm telling people to take advantage of hotels. Because I saw one other thing that kind of made my head explode, where somebody of authority in our industry was telling the world that everybody should go renegotiate their contract, which, you know, I don't think, number one, I don't think hotels are going to do that,
right,
you know, for 21 or 22. And then it's a mess, right? You know? So, you know, I think, you know, let's all collectively be the guiding hand, help the hotels keep things on the books, help the clients have the meeting,
Yeah.
and and just test new things and move with confidence into the future.
Yeah. Let's do a quick time check, see where we are here.
Yeah.
So we're 15 to the top of the hour here.
Yeah, we got a couple more minutes. Any more
Okay,
questions?
keep rolling. Let's keep rolling. Good.
Let's do it.
Janelle says sign those multi-year contracts. And to Bill's
Right.
point, and I don't think that's a I don't think that's a gut shot across the bow here when you say that this is just the buying opportunity of a lifetime. I bet some revenue managers, will tell you that, hey, you're probably right. You're probably going to get a better deal on a multi-year contract today than you would have gotten, in January. So,
Yeah, right, for sure.
this is go time.
So Michelle Skolnick, who's a good friend,
Skull.
had a good comment here, and I think it's wisdom. And her comment is, and it's important to actually talk to each other person to person instead of via email. So much can get misconstrued in an email. Then again, like I said, people are sharp edged. So here's the advice I've been giving everybody that I talk to on the phone that I know. Start every phone call with a big, deep, hearty laugh, because we're all living in the same dumpster fire right now, right? So I start by laughing, and then the other person starts laughing, right? And then we figure out a solution, and we move forward. So start every phone call, that you have to do with a laugh and a hi, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not straight into a, hey, I want this way or that way, or blah, 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 right?
And in all the virtual calls we're doing, seeing our clients, our partners in their homes, in their home offices, with their kids, their spouses, their pets, it's actually been really a great opportunity to connect and create, trust with everyone. So I welcome the opportunity. I agree with Michelle. I'm happy to jump on a call anytime.
Yeah, talk to people.
Someone face to face. Here you go. You're all at home today. Welcome.
Yeah.
I got one point here that I guess got a text, and so for contracting future business, it's going to be different. And Jill, you alluded to it. I know some of the larger brands and chains are working or have rolled out or will roll out some sort of a global strategy on cleanliness and sanitation.
Oh yeah.
As a sales manager, sales leader, whoever's at the RFP response kind of in that capacity, you've got to be able to have that. Our client base is going to ask for that. And that is another way on how you keep meetings on the books for Q3 and Q4. You've got to be proactive.
They're going to demand it. Number one, they're going to demand it. Okay. And
Right.
most people that I know have already rolled it out, or the bigger chains, they're trying to figure out how to get a comprehensive structure. But smaller hotels, that's already all out there.
Yeah.
Here's what the sets look like. Here's what the social distancing looks like. Here's our cleanliness policy.
Here's bring PPE.
And that's how you talk to the executive director off the ledge.
Yeah.
Because,
if you're not leading with that, I think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage.
Right, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Right. We're going to see that more and more, and it's going to continue to evolve. So we're starting to see it now, and we're always happy to share that information, with our clients, because I think it's important to build that safety, trust, and confidence when we do bring meetings back to hotels. So absolutely, we're happy to share that information.
What else we got? See any other questions here, guys? We got about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Pauline's asking. Again, case by case, I think have more rooms. We're still talking about what it looks like for hotel room space, food and beverage. What the hotels are coming back to us so far with is there are not going to be buffets. It could be maybe individually wrapped to go items, plated.
Right.
No more preset tables, servers with gloves and PPE, so face masks, attendees. So those are all things that we're discussing with our hotel partners daily. And I think it comes down to what the hotel requirements.
Yeah, there's one from Kevin here, and I was actually thinking about this one this morning. What does international travel look like?
Mm-hmm.
So the three of us were supposed to be in London today, right? And then going to Dublin on Monday on a President's Club trip.
Still sad about that.
And clearly we're not in London or Dublin, right? It's going to be another interesting thing. But again, I think it's going to have the same effects I talked about for 2021. Okay. I want to go to Rome. I want to go to Dublin. I want to get on planes and go places and experience. And so I've been cooped up in my house for 5 or 6 months, right? Once the coast is clear, I think that kind of stuff is going to explode, right? And that's, so I'm talking about transient business, not a group business. But the incentive business as well. Like people, again, they want to have incentives for their top salespeople because they need to incent them to perform, and they're going to go have meetings. It may be a little iffy back and forth, between here and Europe for a while,
right?
But things will normalize, and I think there's going to be an immense amount of pent up demand of people saying, "I'm getting on a plane and I'm going somewhere."
Yeah, I completely agree. And you think about the cruise market, which they had a fair share or great market share from the incentive market of doing cruises as an option. I just don't think anyone's going to touch that for a while. So that's going to yield
for a while.
Yeah, it's going to yield to international travel, and I think hotels and international, outside the U.S. will come back.
Right.
And it's a matter of waiting on guidelines as to when it's deemed that you can travel beyond non-essential, and when it opens back up again.
Yeah.
Wish we were in Ireland.
I wish we were in Ireland.
Wish we were in Ireland. Yeah.
It'd be afternoon in Ireland, so. or early evening.
Yeah.
What else we got? Any more questions?
Luis has one up here. It'd be interesting to see how many 2020 incentives get shifted to 21. Yeah. And that's what we've been doing, Luis. I mean, we've done a ton of those. That says, hey, we're just going to cancel our incentive, and it's what we did. It's what we did with our President's Club
for next year, right?
Yeah, and a lot of our clients are doubling up or changing it, adding days on the front end or the back end for the 2019 winners to accommodate and give them something special beyond the trip. We are definitely seeing.
Yeah. Well, and there's also interesting submarkets going on out there. So if you look at, I have a very good friend who sells. He works for a medical device company that sells functionally sanitary, like Clorox wipes, whatever they are. All his salespeople have already hit their annual incentive in the last 2 months. Right. So there's companies out there making money. Right.
Yeah.
And they're going to incent their people.
Yeah. Good. So we got a couple of DMCs that are on. We've got DMO partners that are on. So.
So here's a DMC in Scotland saying almost all their incentives are postponed to 21. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, here's a good one. What do you think will now be the greatest driving factor for planners to make decisions and choose hotels? Budget, cleanliness, and in particular. I'll get back to the same thing. You got to have a plan, right? You have to have a published plan. I'd have it on the website. I'd have it readily available to email to any potential client. But at the same point in time, people want to travel and experience. I mean, travel's experiential. So, I mean, they want to go to Aruba. They want to go to Cabo. They want to go wherever. And, that's, I just got it. We're going to Cabo this year. Plan about it. But travel is experiential. And that's, again, why this industry will never be supplemented by some virtual component, because people want to go meet, right? And go, spend time in a nice place and enjoy, their colleagues, their friends, whatever.
Yeah.
Our contracts credit. What about the Caribbean? Well, yeah. I think the Caribbean's going to come back. Like, who doesn't want to go to the Caribbean?
Yeah.
I'm just answering questions here.
Yep.
Alice. So this is true, Bill Kilburg. My husband is a wine distributor for the grocery stores, and his numbers are up 300%. Right? Okay. So alcohol companies. Who knew?
Yeah.
One question here: what can DMOs and CVBs do now to better help us? And I think do what you've always done is focus on the relationships. The destinations that we have a single point of contact at, that our associates know. Those that's what we'll be looking for on the other side of this, and that strategic, relationship driven. Kind of work together, and then that's what we need.
Absolutely.
Inside groups traveling from the United States into Canada for their meetings. I don't know. I mean, I don't see that as a big issue.
No.
Again, same stuff's going to apply, right?
No. We're seeing, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver.
Right.
We're seeing RFPs for all of those markets, and as long as that, they can get in and out of the country, I think that there'll be high demand.
Yeah, for sure. What else? We got any more?
Yeah.
Miss anything? Latin American countries?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably about the same.
Yeah. And and I don't want to throw a dig at the cruise market either. I mean, I think the cruise
no,
definitely going to come back, and it's a viable option for our clients who want to do a different type of incentive. So
or chartering, absolutely chartering ships.
Yeah.
Experience.
Yeah, they kind of got painted with a negative brush early on in this equation.
Right.
Jeff
Witt, how can hotel sales staff increase relationships with our team? And again, the single point of contact is critical.
It's key.
That is, we have to have a face for your hotel, and when we have that,
the phone call, right?
Yeah, that's we gotta have somebody we can pick up the phone and call. Absolutely, right. That's where your share goes up of our spend.
Well,
nope, we lose Jill.
Oh, we lose Jill.
It's okay. She was kind of, come to Dubai, Roman. All right, yeah, Roman. When this is over, I'm coming to Dubai. You got it, brother.
Yeah. All right, 2 minutes. You want to close us out, Bill?
Yeah. I wish we had Jill back on so she could. Oh well. I would say test new things and move forward with confidence into the new world for both planners and hotels. Okay. Let's create creative solutions for our industry. Start every phone call with a laugh because it makes things a lot easier. And just pivot, move, and be creative. Okay. If you freeze up, you got a problem. Pivot, move, and be creative.
Yeah. Just in closing here, I think this was great today. I'd love to do another one of these if there's an opportunity.
We'll probably do one in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So for our clients that are on, we certainly appreciate your partnership. We understand that these are uncharted waters, and we are here to help you. We are here to support you. Our hotel partners, I know you're going through a tough time. I mean, the vast majority of the hotel sales industry is frankly either furloughed or they're slowly coming back, but they have been affected. And if you need somebody to talk to, Jill, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm trying. I am guilty as anybody where I haven't had an opportunity to call and check on my friends. That's because
Yeah,
I'm lifting.
check on your friends.
But
Right.
you know, we're here for you, and we'll be back, and we'll be in Cabo or somewhere, and we'll be ready to raise a glass.
All right.
Jill,
again,
anything in closing?
I think I love what you all have said, and I think it's so important now more than ever, right? We always say as HPN, relationships matter. They matter the most right now. So really taking time to connect with our partners, our friends, our colleagues, our clients, being real, genuine, authentic, sharing information, because we're all in this together. You know, we all are. So let's work together to make, you know, a better future down the road.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And I'll close this out because we're right at 12. Harold coined a pretty good phrase about a month ago, and it was, call your friends and make emotional deposits. You know, don't just call about a deal. Don't call about, hey, this. Just call and say, hey, how are you doing? And talk, right? And that goes for everybody in the industry. You know, from clients to hotels to us to our competitors. You know, go make an emotional deposit with somebody who you have a relationship with, because everybody's going through, you know, a pretty aggressively uncomfortable time.
And help where you can.
And help where you can. And that's
Help where
what
you
we're
can.
here
Be a guiding hand where you can. Always.
for. Yeah. All right, Brian, you want to take us out?
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Great
everybody.
day.
Bye.
Thanks.